My name is Keith Riles. I'm a professor of physics at the University of Michigan. But within the last 5 months, I've been diverted considerably by our discovery of binary black holes that merged together 1.3 billion years ago. And we've been spending a lot of our time trying to understand the implications of this discovery. The viewpoint that Isaac Newton had was that very massive objects like the Earth and the Sun interact with each other instantaneously, that there's a force between them that varies with the inverse distance between those objects, the inverse square law. Einstein had a very different view. Einstein's view was that very massive objects like the Sun or the Earth warp space. They make space curve around them, and objects that are in their vicinity have to respond to that curvature. So the fact that the Earth goes around the Sun in roughly a circle is because the space around the Sun is so warped that the Earth has no choice. It has to go in a circle to follow that warp. Now, if you imagine an oscillation of a very massive object or a whirling massive object, then the warping is going to be changing with time. And when you have two very massive black holes coming together to merge to form a final black hole, that process is extremely violent, and it is swirling space to an incredible degree. So LIGO stands for Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory. So we have two arms of an interferometer in which light travels down, say, the X arm and the Y arm, and when the light goes to the other end, bounces off a mirror and comes back to where it started from, you can get an interference between the returning beams. And that interference pattern depends on the difference between the lengths of those two arms. So if those two arms change in their relative lengths because of a gravitational wave, you will see a change in the light pattern that comes out of the two returning beams. And so what you would expect from a passage of a gravitational wave would be a characteristic brightening of the beam that comes out of your interferometer. And what we saw in September was exactly the right kind of brightening. So in September, we found an interesting signal in our data. Most of us thought initially that it must be an artificial injection, that someone had forgotten to flag in our database. But as we learned within a few hours, it was not an injection, it was real. And then we spent the next several months making sure it was truly real. But as far as we could tell, early on, it was real. What we saw was a characteristic electronic signal coming out of the photodiode that reads out the light from the interferometer that had exactly the right kind of shape for the end spiral of two black holes. And so we saw that signal almost simultaneously in Washington and Louisiana. So one of the cool things about the bandwidth that we work in with LIGO is that it's the audio band. And so when we have signals like the one we detected in September, we can pipe that signal straight into a speaker and listen to gravitational waves. And we get this very distinctive chirpy sound that is fun to listen to. So it was quite a surprise to get this event so early. In fact, we had not officially begun our data run. We were still in what we called an engineering run. And we were just shaking things down, and although the instrument was ready, it turned out to be very, very ready for gravitational waves, we were still fiddling around with our software, trying to make sure everything downstream was ready to go. When we saw this event, we said, okay, we're in observing mode now, and proceeded from there. Okay, so this is a triumph for Einstein's theory of general relativity. He predicted gravitational waves, and they've now been detected. He also has a theory, his Einstein field equations, that tell you what to expect from gravitational waves emitted by binary black holes merging to form a single black hole. All of that is looking extremely consistent with our data. This is by far the most demanding test ever of Einstein's general relativity. There are two very important aspects to this discovery. One is that we have tested one of the fundamental laws of nature to a level that's never been tested before. That's Einstein's general theory of relativity, or also known as general relativity. But we've also now opened up a whole new field of gravitational wave astronomy. So we are now observing the universe in a completely new way through gravitational waves instead of electromagnetic waves. And every time we've opened up even a tiny new part of the electromagnetic spectrum, whether we've gone from visible to infrared or to radio or to microwaves or to X-rays or to gamma rays, every time we've gone into a new part of the electromagnetic spectrum, we have seen something new, something that has surprised us. Now we're opening up an entirely new kind of spectrum altogether, and we don't know what we're going to see.